must confess, I knew very little of Habakkuk, so I did a little reading. The book of Habakkuk was likely written between 610 and 605 BC. It has only 2 chapters in which the prophet Habakkuk decries the sins of Judah, but is grappling with the fact that God's chosen people will suffer at the hands of enemies who are clearly more wicked than they are. He laments God's seeming injustice as God's people suffer. God answers Habakkuk's questions by encouraging the people to continue in faith in God's wisdom, sovereignty, and salvation. While Habakkuk may have lived in the 7th century BC, I think we could relate to this prophet that gives voice to the people of his time's bewilderment. Why are they bewildered? Because it appears as though the greedy, godless, and violent were moving on up at the peril of those who were supposed to be God's chosen ones, those who were following the laws of Moses. How could God let the rich get richer while the poor suffer? These are questions being asked today when aid is being cut off from the poorest of the poor. I think what is interesting to note is that this was written before Christ, BC. We who call ourselves Christians, who have been given a new covenant with God, have been called to take care of the poor, the imprisoned, the homeless, the hungry, as we hear clearly in Matthew 25. We are to continue the work that Jesus began in building the kingdom here by being his hands and feet here in this world, by taking care of the least of our brothers and sisters. So while I found Habakkuk's lament resonating with today, it was very disheartening to find the behavior of the powerful has not really changed much at all, despite the influences of Christianity over 2,000 years. In order to follow the reading from Habakkuk before us today, it's helpful to know what he asked of God as he waits on the rampart for his answer. The question was basically, how can it be that the wicked hem in the righteous so that justice is perverted? Those in power descend like vultures circling in our carrion. They're out to kill. Death is on their minds. They collect victims like squirrels gathering nuts. They mock kings, poke fun at generals, spit on forts, and leave them in the dust. And they're making up their own rules as it goes. This is a paraphrase of Habakkuk from the Message Bible translation. Basically, they are full of self, but they are soul empty. So, what is God's response? That's what we get in our reading today. He says their spirit is not right in them, but the righteous live by their faithfulness. God is trying to convey to Habakkuk and his people that these wicked are bloated by self-importance, but they are soul empty, while the person in right standing before God through loyal and steadfast belief will be truly alive, that they are really alive. I don't know about you, and I guess it's supposed to make them feel better. I know I find myself wanting to complain alongside Habakkuk. It just doesn't make any sense. The bloated seem to be taking all they want, leaving the poor behind. But in the end, like Habakkuk, we are encouraged to stay the course, have hope, and trust in God that is faithful. Good will prevail. For Habakkuk, in his day, it really was a question of deep faith and trust. But I believe for those of us who follow Jesus, we know something new. We know God can transform hearts, and with our participation and willingness to work with God, we find that God can transform our trials into triumphs. In fact, as suggested in the second reading today by Simone Weil, when we are eventually fully taken in by God, consumed by God, in union with God, we will be helping others to find the way too. We become part of the hope. Simone Weil is the author of our second reading, was a Jewish French philosopher, mystic, and activist. She gives us another glimpse of what it means to stay the course, to trust in the God that longs for you and loves you. She uses a labyrinth as a metaphor to paint the picture of the path of life that is about starts and stops, threats and frustrations that come with the messy entanglements of life. But ultimately, she tells us, you will indeed find yourself in the mouth of God. Perhaps today we would say we find ourselves on our knees, finally giving in to God and then being transformed. To some, this may be rather disquieting, if not dangerous. Thinking that the mouth of God waits at the center, waits to eat me alive. Again, upon first reading, the image is frightening, but the truth is, once consumed by God, broken down into God, then we are turned into something needed to help others to grow, like mulch. We are so transformed into goodness or godness that we become something entirely new and useful to building the kingdom. Simone's reflections reflect something about the way God works. Life is a journey, a messy, smelly, sometimes scary path that leads us to a number of personal deaths in order to be reborn into something new. Much like Ignatius teaches us, all of our life experiences have the potential of drawing us deeper into God, even the most difficult of life circumstances. Should we choose to pay attention and stay the course, we will find ourselves in God. Our spiritual journey is all about change and transformation, but it won't happen unless we're willing to risk getting lost, like in the labyrinth. Along the path, I need to hold fast to hope and remember hope is not just wishful thinking, but it rests on the certainty that all will be well, believing in the promises of our God. I pray for each of us in these days and times to have the courage to take the risks of being transformed as we steady the course and do the right thing for the least of our brothers and sisters, to be their voices when theirs are rendered silent. Jesus, God, is waiting for us to do our part. We, with Jesus, are the hope.